For $16.99, you can pick up this, the Lectric XPedition 2.0. Now, there are a lot of e-bike manufacturers out there that have made the claim that their bikes are going to replace cars inside cities. But the truth is, if motorcycles couldn't replace cars, I doubt that 20-mile-an-hour e-bikes are going to be able to do it either. But nevertheless, if there ever was an e-bike that did make sense as a practical replacement for a car and a good way to get the kids off the iPad, it would be this. Obviously, the main selling point of this bike is this big rack that it has on it. It's about 38 inches from here all the way to the back, which makes this thing basically the e-bike equivalent of a transit van, except without the cigarette butts and crushed Red Bull cans in the dashboard. The XPedition 2.0 features a 750-watt hub motor that is paired up with two 48-volt 13-amp-hour batteries. Now, Lectric claims you'll be able to get around 120 miles with this setup, and while I didn't come close to that on my range test, I was still amazed at how difficult this thing was to kill. It took hours. I also measured the wheelbase to be about 56 inches from contact patch to contact patch. You get an 8-speed Shimano cassette, which pairs perfectly with this bike's torque sensor pedal assist. They did end up ditching the old cadence sensor, which I'm glad to hear about. I never liked cadence sensors anyway. Torque sensors are much better. They're much smoother, and they pair perfectly with a bike that has gears. You get a total of 5 pedal assist modes, and the top speed is about 20 mile an hour on the throttle, and they claim about 28 with the pedal assist. So this bike I got came with some passenger accessories, including 2 seats as well as some detachable running boards along the frame. But if you want your kids to be super duper safe, you can also install this guardrail thing called an orbiter, which costs around $179 extra. And if you wanted to use the XPedition for, say, a grocery run, you can get some cargo attachments for the bike as well. Instead of a typical kickstand, you're getting a center stand. While a center stand does make a lot of sense as a cargo bike, especially if you're loading up stuff on one side and the other, that is a feature I think that does need a little bit more work. Considering how heavy the bike is with dual batteries and the wheel and the brakes and all this other stuff and the extra frame at the back, it does make it a little difficult to just get it off and then back on the stand. Especially with the foot pad on there, man. I'm just waiting for that to come in contact with my shin and snap my leg in half. We all know that any contact with the shin bone is the worst pain any human can suffer. A very important inclusion they added to this bike over the previous version is 50mm front forks with preload adjustability. Now, obviously, you're not going to be crushing Red Bull Rampage with these forks, but it does make a pretty good difference, and I found them to be quite cushy. One of the most common questions I get when selling e-bikes is, will this thing fit me? Now, Lectric claims that this bike can comfortably fit people from 4'11" all the way up to 6'5". Now, I am 5'10", and this is how I look on it. Damn sexy, right? Speaking of size, the handlebar stem is fully adjustable and foldable for storage. And finally, the claimed weight is around 74 pounds with both batteries in it. All right, acceleration top speed test and pedal assist 5. Let's start with just the throttle. There we go, we're off. Look at that. Another exciting day of the 20-mile-an-hour e-bikes. And here we go, 20 mile an hour. All right, we'll do all that again, this time with the pedals. Here we go. $20 miles an hour. Doesn't go any faster than that, even with pedaling. Can I force it? Oh, nope. Now, when I first got this thing, I thought it was going to be like really heavy and really clunky because of the extra weight, the extra battery, the very long wheelbase. Kind of like driving, an old pickup truck. But it doesn't feel like that at all. In fact, it handles pretty similar to just like some of the smaller foldable bikes, except with just a little bit of extra weight. Now, obviously, its size does mean that it's going to be a little difficult to store in the garage if you've got a crowded garage or in the back bed of a pickup truck like that. Maybe not that one, but a normal pickup truck might have some trouble. One of this bike's biggest strengths is the range. As someone who is used to riding e-motos whose batteries die after 10 minutes or so, riding something that can truly last forever is amazing. In fact, I rode this thing from Beaumont to Redlands and still had basically a full battery. Granted, most of it was downhill, but even in my other range test, it was almost impossible to kill this thing. Lectric claims you can get around 120 miles, and while that could be possible in specific circumstances, I'd say realistically you're looking at 40 to 70 miles of range depending on terrain and riding style. I wouldn't even bother going with a single battery option if I'm honest, just pay the extra and get the dual. Thanks to this bike's long wheelbase, it is very stable to ride, and it's nowhere near as difficult or as awkward as I thought it was going to be. Look at that chipmunk go. Given the demographic of people that would buy bikes like this, some of you will want to know, is it comfortable to ride? And the answer is yes. I love the fact that you can adjust the handlebars forward and backwards. The seat post has lots of height adjustment, man. You can really be the tiniest person alive and find a decent seat height for yourself. Another really cool thing about this bike is that it is also very quiet. That hub motor back there is barely noticeable. I remember a couple of years ago when you would ride some of these e-bikes, it'd sound like you're basically, riding a blender with wheels. Whereas this, man, it's like whispering into a pillow. You can't hear anything at all. All right, see how we do in a hill climb test? So this hill is definitely very steep, way steeper than it looks on camera with the wide angle lenses. And even some e-motos I've tested have a difficult time climbing this hill. As you can see, I got a full battery on there. I'm obviously gonna be pedaling. Because this thing has gears and a torque sensor, it does make doing uphills like this very easy. I remember a little while back I tested a Super 73. I forget which one it was now. It was like the ZX off-road, and it did horrible on this hill. It actually stopped right before we got to the top of this. And with this thing, with its gears and the torque sensor, pedal assist 5, making it up super easy. I'm actually not even pedaling that hard. Let's drop it down to pedal assist 3 or 2. Make me work for it. Oh, there we go. Now we're working. Now, if you want to drain your battery in a very short amount of time, this is a great way to do it. So, all right, now for the fun part, obviously. Let's go back down. Now, this is not a downhill mountain bike. Oh, this is such a dumb thing to do with this bike. But it is also a good test of braking. Now, the front forks aren't doing too bad of a job. I am definitely asking a lot of them. But you'll also notice this thing definitely does not have any rear suspension. And thanks to those low-profile tires, it does not absorb bumps well at all. Well, why wouldn't we do something like this? Why wouldn't we put a bike that doesn't belong off-road? Off-road, oh, I'm losing braking. Brakes are getting smoked. All I gotta do is do that again, except with 2 people on the back. Then we'll have some real fun. Now, while I didn't exactly do just that, I did end up taking my girlfriend for a ride on the back to see how she felt as a passenger. How are you feeling?
Hi.
No? Not good?
Keep your eyes on the road.
Alright, so I want to see how this bike does going uphill with a passenger. How much do you... Oh, shouldn't have asked you that. Nothing. What I found with riding this bike with a passenger is that you certainly want to be using pedal assist 4 or 5 just to make up for the extra weight the passenger will be adding. And obviously having a passenger on board is going to affect your overall range, especially if you're riding uphill like I was. But overall, the bike handled riding uphill with a passenger perfectly fine, even in pedal assist 3. It didn't do too bad at all. Okay, let's end off with some pros and cons. The first big pro to this bike is the price. At $16.99, that's what it's currently listed at. It's a very good deal for a bike that is as practical and as accessible as this thing is, and the way that I see it, this is sort of like the family e-bike. Kind of like how you have a family car or the family truck, this is the family e-bike. I've already banged on about this a lot, man, but the range really is exceptional with this thing with the dual battery option. You can also opt to get a long range battery option. I haven't tested that thing. Who knows how good the range is going to be with that. But like I mentioned, I would avoid getting the single one, get the dual battery. It's pretty amazing how long this thing can go. I'm also very happy with the torque sensor on this bike. I'm glad they ditched the cadence sensor, which kind of makes pedal assist pretty redundant with most bikes. And also in general, a torque sensor is just more comfortable and smoother to ride. Okay, let's talk some cons. One kind of odd design choice with this bike is that they mounted the headlight right onto the fender right there. So when you're riding on a bumpy road at night or off-road, yeah, it's bounces and shakes around everywhere, so that could be revisited for sure. So I'm not a big fan of that stock seat. I will instantly replace that thing and get something better. You can select an optional extra that will give you a more comfortable seat, which is what I would definitely recommend. Get that seat. Speaking of bumpy roads, the ride quality also isn't that great. This is obviously not a fat tire e-bike. It's got fairly low profile tires. And of course, the last con with this thing, which really isn't the bike's fault, it's pretty slow, man. 20 mile an hour top speed is not fast enough. I do miss the bikes that could do 28, but because I live in the fun-loving state of California, e-bikes can no longer go over 20 mile an hour, so that is a bit of a downside. And as you guys saw, when I was pedaling with pedal assist on, it still wouldn't let me go over 20 mile an hour. I'm also not a big fan of the center stand that this bike comes with. While I understand the practicality of it and why it's there, it is just kind of annoying having to lift the bike up to take it off the stand and lift the bike up to put it back on. It's just kind of annoying to deal with when you want to simply just open up the garage. You got to lift it up, put it on, and then lift it up, put it back out, or you just want to shift it around the garage. It would be pretty awesome if they added just a normal side kickstand in addition with a center stand. That way you've got some options. Overall, this is the ideal utility e-bike for families. It's durable, practical, and with the dual battery setup, the range is exceptional. If you're thinking about buying one of these, make sure you use our link in the description. Thanks for watching.